A dim glow shimmered in the sky long after sunset, ignored by city dwellers rushing home for dinner, but noted keenly by one keen observer, old Mrs. Mabel Henderson, who was feeding her chickens behind the barn. The glow intensified to a brilliant flash, then seemed to vanish just as quickly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. For the most part, Earth carried on with its usual nightly routines. Dogs barked at nothing, streetlights flickered, and people shoved leftover pizza boxes under the sofa for tomorrow's breakfast. But behind Mabel's barn, something distinctly unearthly was unfolding. The being who stepped out from the concealed craft introduced itself, in galactic code, as Gloop Z, BIMP, space explorer from the constellation Farflungia, or at least that was the name he relayed in a series of squelching noises that, if translated, would have roughly matched those syllables. The device he carried on his hip indicated he possessed a scanning tool for cultural assimilation, but unknown to Gloop, his translator had recently been rattled beyond repair by an accidental collision with a meteor. Consequently, whenever Gloop pointed his translator at anything, it delivered garbled readings that were as helpful as a complaint box at a crocodile farm. Thus, Gloop's first glimpse of Earth offered a universe of misreads. He observed his surroundings by creeping around the barn. In the pale moonlight, he saw a row of straw bales stacked up. His translator belched out, "Warning! Advanced living modules, possible monarchy." Gloop raised a brow, an expression that, on his world, roughly meant quiet curiosity mixed with the sensation of having eaten too much spicy root fungus. He approached the advanced living modules carefully, tiptoeing behind the hay. He gently tapped the side of the nearest bale. Straw clumps dribbled into the grass. Gloop sniffed them and found them musty and uninteresting, yet his translator insisted that these were quite important to local royalty. He concluded that these must be the protective barrier surrounding an ancient palace. So he stayed low, determined to outsmart the kingdom's watchmen. In the midst of this reconnaissance, his ears, or the tentacled equivalents, picked up a faint rumbling to the north, a highway not far away. Cars whizzed by, each with bright headlights. Gloop's translator beeped, "High-velocity gem transporters entering active siege mode." He ducked, clinging to the side of the barn with wide, saucer-like eyes. On his home planet, even basic transports were refined devices that gracefully hovered above the ground. The idea of large contraptions roaring on wheels seemed primitive, yet dangerous. He surmised these gem transporters must be carrying great cosmic treasures from kingdom to kingdom. Suddenly, a gentle clucking erupted at Gloop's feet. A lone chicken had waddled around the barn corner, baffled to find a shiny-headed intruder. Gloop scuttled back, fumbling for his translator. Standing face to face with the clucking bird, he pressed a button. The translator gargled, "Mechanical guardian, avoid contact with laser eyes." Descending into utter confusion, Gloop let loose a small squeak of alarm. On his planet, certain guard creatures indeed had laser eyes. Not wanting to risk a direct confrontation, he waved his arms in slow, deliberate circles, trying to convey universal peace. The chicken retreated with a squawk, leaving Gloop grateful for the safe outcome. He inched his way toward the barn door. The translator's flickering display indicated it was made of refined star wood embedded with cosmic nails, which was a gross misinterpretation of old oak boards hammered with plain metal. With trembling anticipation, he slid inside the barn, certain he was entering a treasure vault. The smell of hay, animals, and old leather smacked him in the face, but Gloop's wide eyes fell upon the award ribbons Mabel had tacked to a wooden beam. Blue, red, purple frills from county fairs. The translator spat out, "Alert! Battle magicians, rare trophies of war!" Gloop's heart fluttered. He had stumbled upon valuable Earth artifacts mere steps into his mission. He gingerly removed a bright blue ribbon, turning it over in his three-fingered hands. He bowed his head in reverence. War trophies, indeed. The humans must be formidable if they hung these spoils so casually. Gloop tucked the ribbon into his satchel. Next, he collected a few more battle medallions for good measure. In his mind, the alien museum curators back home would pay handsomely for these storied relics, direct from Earth's triumphant conquests. As Gloop stepped out of the barn, he noticed lights spilling from the house. Mabel was there, back turned, humming as she tidied a small table on her porch. Gloop's translator told him she was emissary of the crown. His heart hammered with excitement. Here was a chance to open interplanetary relations. Gloop cleared his throat, a planetary gesture that sounded a bit like a rusty radio popping static. Feeling uncharacteristically nervous, he approached from behind. Mabel sensed a presence and turned. She saw Gloop's bulbous eyes, reflect in the moonlight, and the wind nearly left her lungs. But Mabel was a tough woman who'd once faced down a stampede of masked raccoons bent on stealing her chicken feed. Keeping her composure, she slowly removed her apron, as if removing armor. Gloop, hoping to put Mabel at ease, reached into his satchel and offered her a small device he believed to be a universal sign of peace. To Mabel, it looked suspiciously like a weird computer chip attached to a bent antenna. She took a half step back. Oh dear, she said, trying to remember her manners. You, lost? The translator, picking up her questions, fed Gloop nonsense. Where is your moon crown? Hast thou smelled the ice cream breeze? Gloop hesitated, uncertain how to respond. He'd hoped the universal translator's repairs would hold, but it was clear the device was on the fritz. Still, he attempted to nod politely and produce a friendly series of squeaks. Many misconceptions later, Mabel gently motioned Gloop inside her home. Perhaps she thought he was a lost traveler in odd attire. Once indoors, Gloop nearly shrieked with delight at the wealth of intergalactic treasures surrounding him. Their first stop was the living room, where Mabel's crocheted blankets, knickknacks, and a big fish-shaped clock covered the walls. Gloop interpreted the crocheted doily on the coffee table as the famed Web of the Star Spinners, an item rumored in alien lore to harness cosmic waves. He hurriedly stuffed it into his satchel, apologizing with frantic gestures. Mabel, startled, tried to protest, but the alien was too quick. Next, Gloop spotted a lava lamp flickering in the corner. To him, it was a galactic plasma beacon used to summon royal star fleets from the outer edges of the galaxy. Eyes glowing with wonder, Gloop prepared to steal it, but the lamp was too big to stuff in his satchel. Instead, he carefully removed the bulb at the top, which he believed was its essence containment unit. Mabel realized what was happening and tried to intervene, but every time she reached out, Gloop squeaked in a frantic, apologetic way, as if to say, "No, we must preserve this for the greater good." Not wanting to upset him, Mabel let him have the lamp's top piece. She was a bit stunned, but also oddly fascinated. Besides, her efforts to push him away only seemed to escalate his confusion. Moments later, Mabel turned off the overhead light so she could point out the lamp's function by plugging it in again, but Gloop saw her flicking the switch and discovered an even bigger treasure. The light switch itself. His translator beeped, "Gravity reversal lever." Gloop's jaw dropped. He stared at Mabel with an expression full of awe. "You have the power to defy gravity with a mere flick of your finger?" His translator sputtered in broken squeaks. "Your civilization is more advanced than we ever feared." Gloop bowed low to Mabel, as though meeting a grand cosmic ruler. Mabel, baffled, scrunched her eyebrows and patted Gloop's shoulder, half flattered and half anxious. She decided to lead Gloop to the kitchen, perhaps hoping to calm him with food and conversation. The linoleum floor squeaked under Gloop's feet, and the overhead light revealed a delightful orchard of appliances for him to misunderstand. He marveled at the refrigerator, which he believed to be a sub-zero cryochamber. He opened it gently, astounded by the cold rush of air. Rows of condiments, leftover lasagna, and half-empty milk cartons extended a welcome. Gloop rummaged around excitedly, plucking out a jar of pickles and holding it aloft like the Holy Grail. "Behold," his translator squealed, "preserved alien embryos from the wise ancestors of Earth's aquatic dominion." Mabel opened her mouth to object, but Gloop had already stuffed the pickle jar into his satchel, screwing on the lid. With reverence, he set it gently aside, then rummaged for more relics. He found a box of baking soda and read the label in confusion. The translator told him it was baking soda, a philosophical powder for terraforming. His mind reeled. For eons, his people had searched for cheaper terraforming solutions, and Earth just kept it in a cardboard box? Next, Gloop fixated on the toaster. Twin slots, metallic sides, a mysterious lever. Weapon of planetary immolation, beeped the translator. He leapt back, wanting to be sure it didn't incinerate him. Mabel tried to show him how to operate it by dropping in a slice of bread and pressing the lever. He flinched at the mechanical groan, but when the toast popped up warm and lightly browned, Gloop snatched it in wonder. The translator was silent on what toast meant, perhaps too confused, but Gloop took one sniff of the bread, chewed, and was amazed. He carefully stored the slice in a plastic bag from his satchel, presumably to show his superiors the wonders of Earth cuisine. He'd hardly recovered when he caught sight of a blender on the counter. With its pitcher shape and spinning blades, Gloop's translator squawked, "High-speed transdimensional vortex creator." If Earth had harnessed vortex technology for everyday use, they must be unstoppable. He approached with both fear and curiosity, switching it on. The resulting whir made him squeal and hide behind Mabel, half expecting the entire kitchen to be sucked into another dimension. Mabel gently pressed a button to stop the blender. She held up a banana, peeled it, chopped it, then tossed the pieces inside with a splash of milk and a swirl of honey, trying to demonstrate how it made drinks. When she turned it on again, the translator lost its mind. Warning, explosion imminent, banana human sacrifice. The poor alien leapt onto the kitchen table, eyes bulging in horror. But when the blender stopped and Mabel poured out a smoothie, Gloop tapped the glass warily with a pointed finger. He took a sip, flinched, then giggled in delight. Satisfied he wouldn't spontaneously explode, he insisted on adding the empty banana peel to his trove, sure it was part of the powerful vortex-making ritual. The next morning arrived, slanting golden sunlight into the quiet farmland. Mabel gently ushered Gloop outside. She had some errands in town, and although she felt uneasy leaving him alone, she suspected it might be good for him to explore a bit, maybe realize Earth's normalcy, and calm down. She tried to direct him toward the barn again, but Gloop saw a pickup truck in the driveway and gasped. Here was the high-velocity gem transporter he had heard roaring down the roads the previous night. He approached it with reverence, gloved hands stroking the steel frame. "Your chariot of cosmic victory," said the garbled translator, to which Mabel responded by offering a short drive into town. The alien was hesitant at first, but curiosity overrode his fears. Soon enough, Gloop strapped himself into the passenger seat, with the seatbelt mistaking it for a containment harness. Mabel turned the key, revving the engine. Gloop yelped in excitement, or possibly terror. On his planet, machines rarely rattled to life quite like an ancient beast. The drive to the local grocery store took just a few minutes. Gloop stared wide-eyed at the passing scenery. Mailboxes, which he read as portable wormhole deposit boxes, dogs on leashes, miniature ground dragons in captivity, and traffic lights. Orb signals for interdimensional migration. Every new sight was another addition to Gloop's mental tapestry of Earth. His satchel was already bursting with stolen ribbons, crocheted doilies, banana peels, pickle jars, even an ice cube tray that he snatched from the fridge on his way out, believing it to be Solidfoot's Starlight molds. Mabel parked at the grocery store, calmly explaining to Gloop through gestures how they were about to gather items for her pantry. Gloop hopped out, scanning the area nervously. Bright signs and displays scattered across the storefront. Mabel tried to lead him inside, but he soon got distracted by a row of vending machines outside. He pointed his translator at the snack machine's glass front. "Prison for cosmic droplets. Insert coin for release," it crackled. Gloop's eyes shone with pity for the imprisoned snack packages. He dug into Mabel's coat pocket. The old lady had offered him some loose change earlier, not really sure how else to communicate, and retrieved a few coins. He slipped them into the machine, pressing random buttons. A bag of chips clunked into the retrieval slot. Gloop squeaked triumphantly. He held the bag high, reading the label. "Ultra-salted potato slices, now with twice the crunch." The translator spat out, "Battle rations of the Sky Pirates." Realizing these so-called Sky Pirates must have very crunchy diets, Gloop carefully stashed the bag next to the pickle jar. well aware of how valuable it might be for an interplanetary museum exhibit. Inside the grocery store, Mabel struggled to keep Gloop focused. She tried leading him past the produce aisle, but each new invention or display enthralled him. The shopping carts with their wobbly wheels were perceived as child chariots for cosmic royalty. Mabel let him push one around, noticing how gently he maneuvered it, as though expecting it to fire lasers at any moment. He squeaked happily whenever the wheels squeaked back, an odd conversation between man and metal. Then came the bakery section. Gloop watched in dawning awe as a clerk placed fresh loaves on a shelf. The translator beeped, "Edible building material amended with future prophecies." Convinced that Earth bread might hold mystical knowledge, he tried to buy every loaf in sight with Mabel's credit card. She'd unwisely handed it to him for a moment. The clerk was too startled to intervene, so Mabel stepped in, apologizing with frantic gestures. Once she calmed the situation, Gloop happily sampled free pastry samples, deciding each contained elaborate cosmic secrets. As they approached the cleaning supplies aisle, Gloop spotted a row of toilet plungers. His translator beeped incorrectly again, scepters of authority wielded by the Grand Plunger Lord. Gloop's breath caught in his chest. A row of scepters for sale? Simply out in the open for anyone to claim? What kind of democracy was this planet running? He selected a bright red plunger, gazing in reverence at its rubbery suction cup. Twirling it, he stroked the handle as if forging an alliance with its unstoppable might. Mabel tried to get him to put it back, but he insisted, hugging it to his chest. She shook her head in surrender. Next came the pet supplies. An unfortunate detour near the dog treats, Gloop discovered squeaky toys. The translator interpreted them as musical orbs of supreme communication. He tested them, unleashing a shrill squeak that filled the aisle, startling customers, and a bored teenager restocking shelves. Gleefully, Gloop squeaked them over and over, believing he was conducting a symphony of interstellar ambassadors. Mabel laid a coaxing hand on his shoulder, guiding him forward. At last, they made it to the checkout line. People gawked when they noticed a scaly green figure wearing a satchel overflowing with doilies, ribbons, and pickles, a plunger in one hand, squeaky toy in the other. Unsure how else to behave, Gloop brandished the plunger in a kind of regal flourish, not understanding why mothers ushered their children away, and why an old man in line kept shaking his head. After an awkward exchange, Mabel paid for a modest set of groceries, including the plunger Gloop insisted on. The clerk eyed Gloop warily, but said nothing. Mabel guided the alien back to the pickup truck, where he placed the plunger in the cab with utmost care, as though placing a nuclear briefcase. Within moments, they puttered onto the road home, leaving rubberneckers in the parking lot to squint after them. Back at the farm, Gloop had one final mission in mind before he could depart. He trembled with excitement as he asked Mabel if she might direct him to Earth's greatest ancient watering hole. The translator insisted that Gloop needed to gather the final elixir. Confused, Mabel led him to the nearby river, a gentle waterway that meandered through her property. Gloop stooped by the water's edge, mesmerizing himself with the reflection of sun and sky dancing on the surface. He tried scooping water into a jar. The translator insisted this was liquid essence of the planet's soul, an incredibly powerful resource. Gloop grinned from ear to ear, carefully setting a jarful into his satchel. He must not spill a single drop. If Earth truly held so many wonders, surely this elixir was the cornerstone of its power. Meanwhile, Mabel found herself warming to her visitor. Despite the language barrier and bizarre misunderstandings, his earnest fascination was somewhat endearing. She offered him a gentle pat on the arm. Gloop responded by touching his forehead to hers, a sign of respect among his species. It was an odd moment of connection, human and alien united by curiosity and kindness. With the day fading, Gloop realized it was time to depart. He rummaged in his satchel, carefully taking stock of all the treasure he had collected: crocheted doilies of cosmic webs, battle metal ribbons, banana peels from the vortex ritual, sub-zero cryo pickles, the unstoppable scepter plunger, squeaky orbs for supreme communication, a half-full bag of sky pirate rations, an ice cube tray of starlight molds, the lid of the plasma beacon lamp, the board of gravity reversal from Mabel's wall, and more. Each item spoke of Earth's extraordinary power and unlocked secrets. In truth, they were a chaotic collage of everyday odds and ends, but to Gloop's eyes, it was a trove of immeasurable worth. Before leaving, Gloop gazed at Mabel with a gentle wave of gratitude. The translator beeped, "Thank you. I will sing your praises across the galaxy." A lump formed in Mabel's throat. She nodded, proud and yet slightly concerned about what bizarre stories might spread among the stars about Earth's apparently unstoppable technologies. She extended her hand, and Gloop clasped it gently in both of his. An odd hush fell between them. No more rummaging, no more squeaking translator, just a genuine moment of mutual respect and thanks. Then, just as quietly as he had arrived, Gloop slipped away behind the barn. Mabel followed at a distance. A burst of light signified Gloop's craft warming up, and the ship rose, silent and smooth. The hay bales did nothing to block its ascent this time, and soon the craft vanished into the sky, leaving behind faint ripples of starlight shimmering overhead. Mabel stood there, feeling as though she'd awoken from a half-dream, except for the missing ribbons, doilies, plunger, and that jar of pickles she'd planned for dinner. Days passed, and Mabel found herself telling her bizarre story to friends and neighbors. Naturally, word spread, and soon local news reporters came knocking. At first, no one believed her outlandish narrative of the polite alien who stole crocheted doilies and brandished a toilet plunger like a scepter. But then they saw the suspicious scorch marks behind the barn and the mysterious footprints. A hush of curiosity fell over the town. Some suggested a hoax, others feared an invasion. Still, Mabel steadfastly insisted it wasn't malicious, just a visitor who badly misunderstood human objects. Hundreds of miles above Earth, Gloop soared in his craft, taking an inventory of his new acquisitions. He softly hummed a triumphant tune, imagining how his people would react when he presented them with these wonders. The crocheted doily, he believed, would be placed in a glass case for scholarly debate. The plunger might become the symbol of a new planetary alliance. Meanwhile, the jar of pickles would no doubt be displayed as an artifact from Earth's aquatic dominion, revered by xenobiologists. Gloop's heart swelled with joy at the thought of bridging cultures, forging connections. He pictured returning to Earth one day with more knowledge, hopefully a better translator, and perhaps an explanation for the doily fiasco. Yet Gloop also felt a pang of sadness leaving Mabel behind. Despite the translator's fiascos, her kindness stood out amidst all the confusion. Maybe, in some unspoken, universal language, they had reached a level of understanding beyond the translator's capacity. He hoped she'd think of him fondly and not hold too big a grudge for the doily theft. Back on Earth, Mabel sometimes stared at her crocheting set, remembering how Gloop had whisked away one of her favorite pieces. She smiled at the memory, half expecting him to pop into her kitchen again, rummaging for cosmic relics in her cupboards. In time, the townsfolk's interest faded, the news crews left, and Mabel repaired the barn door. Everything returned to normal, or at least the rural version of normal that included chicken feed, orchard breezes, and occasional raccoon infiltration. Not far away, a traveling museum exhibition dedicated to alleged extraterrestrial encounters arrived in a neighboring town. Mabel visited once out of curiosity and found a display with pictures of the typical little green men and their rumored pranks. She shook her head at the sensational angle, marveling at how different and oddly friendly her own experience had been. In the gift shop, she spotted a novelty plunger shaped like a spaceship handle. She laughed out loud, startling a young couple browsing t-shirts. On a whim, she purchased it, tucking it under her arm. If Gloop ever came back, perhaps she'd return the favor, offering him a more official scepter than the battered one from the hardware store. In the quiet moments of an evening, Mabel wandered to the river's edge, gazing at the ripples. She reflected on how that water had mesmerized Gloop, how he believed it possessed planetary soul powers. She knelt down, scooping a shallow handful to her lips, letting the coolness trickle down her throat. It was just water, but in Gloop's eyes, it had been so much more. Maybe that was the beauty of his outlook, seeing the extraordinary in simple, everyday things. Perhaps, Mabel thought, we humans could learn a thing or two from that. High above, Gloop peered down at the swirling blue orb of Earth through a small porthole. He thought about the planet's capacity for marvels, the unstoppable toasters, the cosmic bananas, the scepters of plunging, such an unassuming world, filled with wonders that overshadowed even the grandest illusions of interstellar rumor. Gloop let out a soft chortle, patting the translator effects to his belt. He absolutely needed to get it repaired. His next visit to Earth should include accurate communication, so he could ask Mabel about these so-called pickles properly. Maybe he could invite her to his homeworld, offering a slice of bread from her own vortex ritual. The possibilities for cultural exchange were endless. He set a course for the distant star that housed his planet, traveling through cosmic dust and swirling asteroid belts. His engine glided through the vacuum, quietly humming with energy. The farmland lights, the glow of city horizons, the swirling oceanic tapestry of Earth Thief shrank in the distance, but not in Gloop's memory. He clung to the plunger and the doilies like an excited child with new toys. Surely this would usher in a new era of interstellar regard for Earth, not as a backwater planet, but as a bold land of unstoppable gravity levers, advanced cryo chambers, and grand plunger lords. And yes, maybe a bit of humility for those star travelers who assumed that their technology was the be-all and end-all of cosmic ingenuity. So Gloop, content with his odd horde and swirling with new ideas, soared away. Mabel, content in her quiet routine yet newly awakened to cosmic possibilities, remained. Each found a new perspective on life's daily wonders, and perhaps, somewhere in the tapestry of the universe, that's the biggest treasure of all. Not the cosmic doilies or the star lamp lids, but the mutual curiosity between different beings who share a galaxy. Because in the end, a crochet doily might just be a doily, but if you look at it with enough wonder, it can transform into something magical for both humans and aliens alike.